Sammy, welcome to the Razor's Edge.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
That's all right. So to start things off, checking in, we've had 18 months in isolation. How have you guys come out of that okay?
Yes, yeah. Now that things are sort of, returning to some sort of, normality, yeah, life's starting to feel pretty good again. I think that last lockdown for everyone was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Just like when the lockdown first started, we were kind of in like a fortunate position where it didn't affect us too much, and it was kind of novel to have so much time off. But come the winter lockdown, I think we were kind of like clawing at the walls and just sort of like, I want to go out and see live music and see friends again. But now that's all sort of started to resume. I'm starting to feel good again, which is nice.
Absolutely, yeah. So, and you've kept yourselves busy. Obviously, yourself and Justine have Church Road Records, which we'll come on to later. But you've managed to produce a new Employed to Serve record. So has having those 18 months of nothing helped you on that front?
Oh, very much so. I mean, once we got to the part of the first lockdown where it became apparent we weren't going to be going back to normal life for a while, we kind of got the green light to you may as well just start working on a new record. And that was music to my ears because I kind of tentatively started writing some new material and was getting into a bit of a groove with it. So yeah, initially with the lockdown, it was fantastic to have that to do. I mean, that was kind of where I was putting all of my attention and was keeping me, occupied during that time when nothing else was going on. So yeah, we would have got round to doing another record probably, keeping to the same time frame we usually do, where it's like 2 years after the one before. But I think this new album would have, sounded a lot different, and the songs probably would have been completely different had it not been for the pandemic, really.
Yeah, and you said you got the green light for it. So did you have to wait for the record company to say, yeah, we're ready to put out the record before you start thinking about it?
No, it's not quite that brutal. It was more we're sort of talking within the band and like with our manager and stuff. Not that there's really, they're obviously like right all the time, right whenever you want to. Yeah. But I kind of get into like a real, zone with it and get very excited when I kind of get into the groove of writing a new album. So I kind of wanted to real thumbs up to okay, it's been long enough now. You guys can go into the studio. It's probably a good time for you guys to go into the studio later this year and, put out a new album start of next year or, midway through next year. So yeah, it's, there's never you guys can't be doing anything but, for a while or any red tape, but it was kind of nothing's happening for a while. You guys may as well go and record a new album and be working on that. So I got fully submerged into that that way of working.
Yeah. So before getting fully submerged, were you already looking and writing and starting that process? How soon after really Eternal Forward Motion do you start writing again?
Pretty soon, to be fair, because I always like to have one or two kind of in the tank, so I kind of know we're in a good place for the next one, and there's at least some ideas coming through. So there was, I think, 3 of the songs on the new album were written pre-pandemic, and then the rest were all during lockdown. So there was kind of a bit of a vision for where we wanted the music to go with this next record before we fully got into the swing of things.
Yeah, and not wanting to keep mentioning the pandemic, but it's sort of unavoidable. Did you approach the writing and recording any differently because of the pandemic? Did you do anything different than you normally would?
Fortunately, no for us. So by the time we got into the studio, it was just before Christmas, so just before we went into what was tier 4, and then just full on lockdown again. But by that point, I think that the rules had somewhat changed for people who own studios. It was, you could carry on if you were happy to, and you were kind of doing everything by the book. So we were kind of fortunate that it didn't really change a lot for us, really. Particularly with the writing side of things, all of that was done, in the room I'm sitting in now. So that kind of didn't force any change, really, because the previous album was more or less the same. And then this one was all sort of done by myself at home, because obviously there's such a new, we've got a almost entirely new lineup. Yeah. So writing wise, nothing was changed. And then, fortunately, nothing was interrupted in terms of recording either. I know some bands have had a hell of a time, trying to get records done because,
Yeah.
they started at a bad time, been cut short and then had to go back. And no, so for us, it's kind of been, as we always do it.
Yeah, excellent. So, and you talk about the new lineup and yourself writing in that room. Is it purely, are you the sole songwriter, or does anyone else help you out on that front?
It's kind of changed over the years. So with like the very first ETS album, it was like a way more kind of collaborative kind of effort where we were like finding ourselves, and then still a similar vibe on the second album, but maybe with a bit more of me coming in with like, almost fully formed songs. And then with Eternal Forward Motion, by that point, I think it's just because I kind of got an idea of what I wanted to do with the next album. So I had this like really intense writing spell where I was just coming up with a lot of stuff. So I came with a lot of stuff to the table, and then people would like obviously add in ideas like, oh, maybe we could do this instead, or we could add this bit in. So I definitely always want to keep an open mind with whatever I write and not be too protective over it, because obviously, it's you're so involved in it. Sometimes you can't see, ideas that really better it, or, changing it in ways to make it better. Sometimes, shortening, sections or whatever. So I'm not too overprotective with my writing, but I do a lot of it. So with Conquering, that was the case as well. I kind of did a lot, and at this point, all the new members are still kind of getting into the swing of writing, and I'm hoping with the next album, it will be a case of like leaving it open to be more of a collaborative effort still.
Yeah. And having listened to the album for a good week now, it's definitely a progression from the last album, and you as a band never churn out a similar sounding album time after time. Each album stands out on its own. So is that a focus when you're writing? I don't want to cover the same ground again. I want to do something different.
Oh yeah, very much so. I think from our second album, where we first kind of switched things up by doing like slower songs like I Spend My Days in Good for Nothing, I think we got a real kick for the reaction that kind of like we got from people when we did that. There'll be like some people coming in with like being really negative about it, and then people kind of being excited that we're trying something new out. So since that second album, we've always kind of made it the aim to always switch it up. I mean, we never want to like fully alienate our fan base and put out something that's like so far removed from where we've been, but we're always looking at ways to kind of throw a curveball and get hopefully a bit of a knee-jerk reaction from it.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the freshest sounding new albums this year, having spent that time with it this week.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome to hear.
So to touch on the artwork, it's a stunning visual piece from Luke Priest. So can you tell me about the vision behind it and the story you wanted that artwork to portray?
Yeah, sure. So it's, as you can probably guess, it's like a continuation from the Eternal Forward Motion artwork, where we had like people inside this kind of sort of factory setting with all the cogs and moving parts. So that was supposed to be a kind of metaphor for the kind of state of mind people get themselves into. And with Conquering being, the theme being, self-empowerment and sort of getting a real control over your emotions, we wanted to kind of have this visual that of someone transcending that state of mind and, breaking free of that mindset. So we had like the rough idea of like, oh, it'd be cool to have like a head, like bursting open and all of these cogs and moving parts coming out of it. And we basically just gave that rough brief to Luke, and he came back with the awesome artwork that he did.
Yeah, it looks brilliant, to be fair. So for all the write-ups of the album I've seen, it's majority positive reviews. So do you pay attention to that when they come out? Do you take that feedback on board and see what people are saying?
Yeah, definitely. We're always just like stoked anyone's taken the time to like listen to the music and give a review of it. So we're always interested. I mean, we take every like negative review or bit of criticism with a pinch of salt, because ultimately at the end of the day it's just an opinion, and there's no point getting hung up on it either. And and sometimes you might read it and be like, oh, fair play, like maybe I will take that on board for the next record, or I think it's good to do. Yeah, sure.
Absolutely. So switching to live shows for a minute, you played Download Pilot back in June.
Yes.
How was that as an experience post-pandemic?
It was incredible. I mean, Yeah, it was funny because leading up to, we were obviously very, very nervous that that was the first show back. Even more so for our new guitar player because that was his first show with the band. But I think we were just so stoked to be back doing it and to be given this opportunity for that to be the first show back that once we just like hit the first note of the first song, we were just having the best time ever and could just like fully enjoy it. We just had the mentality of like, hey, you know, it's first show back, whatever happens, happens. And I think having said that, we just didn't focus, like overly focus on anything, and we just were in the zone, completely having fun with it.
Brilliant. So presumably, as live shows are opening again, as we were talking about earlier, off the back of the new album, there's going to be a lot of live shows in your future, I'd guess.
Indeed, yeah. We're in fact like on the cusp of announcing some more dates for this year. In fact, because we were very keen to get some sort of release shows penciled in.
Yeah,
because we've been confirmed for the Gajira tour, which kicks off in January.
Yeah,
and even though that's not too far away now, we were just like, oh, we want to play some shows this side of the year and just after the album's coming out. So yeah, an announcement is imminent for some headline shows this year. Brilliant. And then we're already working on bookings for like early next, summer, late spring kind of time. So,
and obviously the summer festival season, I guess, next year.
Indeed, yeah. So yeah, we're very keen to sort of just hit the ground running and play as many shows as possible. Because even though we had like a fair amount of time to play shows after the release of Eternal Forward Motion, it still kind of felt like it was fairly cut short.
Yeah.
And like with this album, we really want to like hammer it home and just, play as many shows as we possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we can switch away from Employed to Serve for a minute, you and Justine run Church Road Records. You signed a number of bands in the wake of the Holy Roar fallout, but where did Church Road Records start from? Did the label exist prior to that point?
It did, yeah. So it actually started just over 4 years ago now. So yeah, about August 2017 it was. So up until fairly recently, I was a gardener.
Right.
I quit initially back in 2017 because I really badly injured my back. So in that period of time, I was just off from work completely, and I was like, all right, I need to kind of do some stuff to keep me occupied. And I've always wanted to run a label of some sort, and distro as it was back then as well. So I just had the idea to start Church Road to release some of my side projects and some of my like friends projects, and also just have a bit of a distro going where I can sell records from bands that I really enjoy as well. So it'd been existing for, I guess it was about 3 years by the time everything went on with Holy Roar and Justine came over and took the reins.
Brilliant. And I guess with Justine's time working for Holy Roar, she obviously brings a lot of experience and contacts to the label as well.
Oh, very much so. I mean, it really is like, the thing it is today because of, Justine's hard work and, understanding of the music industry. I mean, there's obviously stuff I was kind of like on, I kind of knew about when Justine came over that I could kind of jump in on. But ultimately, I mean, she has, a much wider knowledge of how it all works than I do.
Yeah. So what's your vision for the label going forwards?
Just keep releasing bands that we really enjoy listening to, really. I mean, not that we want to be a carbon copy of Relapse Records, but Relapse is kind of the label we admire because it covers everything from, you've got, they're releasing stuff by, Nile, Suffocation, death metal bands and stuff all the way up to like nothing, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's such a wide variety of music, but it still somehow neatly fits underneath that umbrella, and we just kind of want to have the same thing going on with Church Road, really. We've come up with a new tagline, from the extreme to the serene.
Brilliant.
I think that kind of fits the description quite well.
I think it describes it perfectly, to be fair. So one final question on the subject: how do you manage to juggle everything, the band, the label, your own lives outside of that as well? It must get a little overwhelming at times.
Well, we were very fortunate that when everything went down last year, and we had a very quick turnaround with sorting out the Svalbard and Palm Reader records, that there was actually no live shows, and life was still at a bit of a standstill, because we did, in hindsight, we do kind of say like, oh my goodness, could you imagine if had all of that to deal with whilst we were on tour, or whatever else. So it was kind of fortunate from that aspect that we were just at home and no touring was taking place. But it seems like the real decider, on how it was going to work as things start opening up. And so far, so good, I can say. I mean, since we can kind of work from wherever we are, we just have to kind of take our laptops.
Yeah.
It kind of slots in nicely with our way of living, really. We don't have to be in any one place to sort of do our jobs. We can be off, at Bloodstock, and then in the morning, if there's something urgent, we can like hop on our, computers and, sort it out. So yeah, everything kind of gels well with each other, which is very fortunate.
Yeah, that is brilliant. And you're doing a great job with it as well. I'm loving it. Out of it. So, Sammy, just to round it off, it's been a pleasure talking to you today, and I wish you all the best with the album launch this week.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you keep up to date with future episodes by subscribing to our channels. For more information on this podcast, or for all the latest music news, reviews, interviews and more, head over to our website, www.therazorsedge.rocks.